and a U.S. history class. And our U.S. history curriculum goes from the Revolutionary War through through the Constitution, Bill of Rights, Civil War. And so we're really excited about learning more about civics.
Great. So my name is John Rothlin. I work in government affairs for a company called Avista Corporation. Avista is an electric and natural gas utility based in Spokane. Before going to work for Avista about 5 years ago, I worked for the legislature for about 18 years. So I've spent a lot of time on the Hill in various capacities. And now I'm kind of working on the outside, but very much involved in the legislature on a day-to-day basis, particularly when they're in session, which started Monday. So we're very busy here in Olympia right now. And with me is Christine Brewer. And Christine is a contract lobbyist, which means she isn't employed by any one particular entity to do government affairs on their behalf, but contracts with multiple clients to help do government affairs and to assist me and some of the other clients that she works with to effectuate the policies that we're working on, and there are a lot of them coming up. So maybe Christine could talk a little bit about her background.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, my name's Christine Brewer, as John said. I own Brewer Public Affairs, but it's just me. And so I have multiple business clients, but Avista Corporation with John. And my background is I've been lobbying for about 15 years. And I did work for state government, the Department of Labor and Industries that administers worker safety and health and workers' compensation, as well as the Department of Social and Health Services. And I was the head of their government affairs before coming out on my own. And I've been doing this for about 8 years on my own. So I've been doing this about 15 or 20 years now.
So we were thinking maybe.
So I can relate. 3 teenagers.
Okay.
So, but in Olympia here. So.
Okay. So we were thinking maybe about a little bit of a meet and greet, and then have the kids ask you some questions to kind of, so we all can get to know each other. And then we've been looking at some of the bills that have been filed. And so maybe we could talk to you about some of the research we've been doing on bills. And then our class knows that it's a short session. And so our goal is to talk about bills today. And then between now and when we meet next, have our class pick our bill that we would like to work on. And then so maybe a meet and greet, talk about bills, and then maybe you could give us a little homework or some assignments maybe to do before we talk again.
That sounds like a great plan.
Okay. So we're going to get up and then have the students come up because it should be about them. So,
Yep.
Okay, Garrett Clay.
So my name is Garrett Clay.
Hey, Garrett.
And I was wondering how long you guys have been a lobbyist.
Okay, good question. So I was on the staff, worked for the legislature, so I have only been lobbying for 5 years. So I've been around the environment, but working on this side of the issues is a little bit different for me.
And I've been lobbying for about 15 years. So I've been doing this pretty much since I got out, graduated from college.
Thank you.
Okay.
And make sure you introduce yourself.
I'm Jill.
Hi, Jill.
I'm Bree.
Hi, Bree.
All right, so what is your favorite part of your job?
That's a bad. So I would say, when you get into looking at policies and bills, and you provide ideas that people understand, and then it makes the final bill that they pass and the laws work for everybody. And that's, I think, what is the most gratifying to me, is being able to make a difference and making government work well on behalf of the people that it represents.
And I agree with John. I think, you know, there's a different type of lobbying, and John and I are similar in that we really dive down into the policies that we're working on. And so I think both of our backgrounds just lend really well to, we really enjoy reading bills, but a lot of people in Olympia are like, what? That's boring. But you'll see John and I paging through bills, really trying to understand the policy, especially, you know, we specialize in energy policy for Avista. And maybe you want to describe what Avista is. I don't know, that might be a good idea to do. And so, I mean, on how those lights are turned on, there's a lot of policy that goes behind the heat in your room you have right now, and how you have lights and how that gets to you. And so those are the types of policy that we analyze daily. You know, and some of those policies we like and our company agrees with, and some they don't necessarily. And so that's why they have John and I to, you know, represent them and explain to legislators and staff, you know, why things are a great idea and sometimes why they're not so great. And so I really enjoy that we're able to deliver the message, but also get into the details of the policy.
Our other question is, why did you become a lobbyist?
Want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why? Well, my mom, I'm originally from Spokane, and then we moved over to Olympia when I was in second grade. And so my mom I was raised around state government. She was the head of unemployment insurance for the state of Washington and managed that for many years. And so I was basically raised right next door to the Capitol. So when I was in high school, I came down and did a couple of shadowing opportunities with staff. And then when I was in college, I decided to do an internship in the House for a session. And that was the best decision I made, because I knew that I wanted to work in some capacity around the legislature. And so then ultimately just started my way out at the Department of Labor and Industries, and ultimately landed where I'm at today.
And so I actually started out as a news reporter, and I used to cover the legislature a little bit, and I thought it was really cool. It's a neat place to come to work every day. It's very interesting things happen. And then, so eventually I came to work for the legislature, and I really enjoyed that too, and did that for, 18 years. And I really like coming to the Capitol every day. It is a really cool place to come to work every day. What I was looking for is just something to learn and to make the experience a little bit different. And so Avista, the company I work for now, is looking for somebody to help them with experience with the legislature. And I didn't know that much about energy policy, but I knew how the legislature worked. And so they let me come to work for them. And so that's how I kind of transitioned. Like I say, I still get to come to work to a really cool place. The Capitol is very neat. I hope you guys get to come if you haven't already, and get to work and learn about the energy business and use my experience with the legislature to help a company that's doing really good things.
Cool beans.
Cool beans.
She told me to. Hey, I'm Carson.
Hey, Carson.
So, what's the weirdest bill you helped pass?
Weirdest?
That's a good one. You know, when I first came to work for a utility company, you guys know what a utility is? We're the company that provides the electricity, and if you have natural gas, you do that too. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be working on all of these utility bills, and which I do. And we look, we try to look for things, what's going to make electricity more expensive, and we try to not make those bills go away, and the bills that make us provide cheaper and more reliable power, we like those bills. So I thought I was going to be working on those, and I do that sometimes. But the first day I sat down with my company, they said, oh, we have this bill on tree trimming. And I thought, tree trimming? Well, we have to make sure that the trees are trimmed back so that our lines don't go down. And so that was the first bill I worked on. And then the next bill was about metal theft, because apparently metal is a pretty hot commodity and people like to steal metal, and they turn it in and they get money for it. So here I was thinking I was working on energy bills, and I ended up working on, tree trimming and metal theft bills. So you never know what you're going to come and be working on any day you come here.
You stole my example. I was going to use the metal theft bill. That was an interesting one. That the areas we work in, we don't really deal with law and justice issues as much, and so the metal theft bill, what we were trying to do was increase the penalties for criminals that steal metal from. It could be from a utility. So what they do is they go into our substations and they steal the copper wire, and then they take that to metal recyclers to get money for that. And so that's theft. And so it was a pretty low level crime, but it was the numbers of thefts on our substations was increasing dramatically. But in addition to that was, do you guys know Brown Bear car washes? Have you guys have those in your town? But they have those tall copper bears. Those were getting stolen. So it was a very interesting group of folks that we worked with. It was the car wash people, and it was the cities and the police. But it was really interesting. But what we learned, I'll never forget this. We were in a stakeholder meeting and the police were in there, and I get a little nervous around police. I'm not sure about you guys, but even in a setting where everything's fine, but they were describing to us what the thieves, how they knew that these thieves were stealing the metal, because their hands were very swollen, because when you're dealing with metal like this, that I guess your joints just swell tremendously. So anyway, I thought that is just a random cool fact, cool in my view, to learn up here. And we don't deal, most of it is kind of boring, I would say. So that was a little exciting and different to get to work on. Ultimately, that we did pass the bill, I will say that. And so that I viewed that as a real success for our company.
When I was on staff, I had one of the legislators I was working for, who's from Eastern Washington. He owns a big ranch up in the timber country in Okanagan County. And he had a bill, and everyone liked it, and it was to relocate beavers from Eastern Washington to Western Washington, because too many beavers working the creeks and waterways in his area. And so he wanted to relocate them over to Western Washington. So he got...
Did it pass?
It did. It did.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thanks, Arthur.
Hi, my name's Logan.
Logan. Go Cougs.
What?
Go Cougs.
Oh, yeah. My question for you is, what is the typical salary of a lobbyist?
That's a
Great
good
question.
question. So, I mean, you have all kinds of, different levels of and manner of lobbyists. I would say, when you're starting out, you usually start out helping another lobbyist. And so, you're probably, making, you can start out if you're, in the, maybe even an hourly, but maybe in the $30,000 a year range, I would say. And then as you get more experience and, gain more credibility and more access to people on the Hill, then your value goes up, and you can, get up into the $100,000 range. There, Christine can talk a little bit. Contract lobbying is a little bit different because it depends on the type of clients that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I think contract lobbying, describing that, I have my own company, but then I contract with different businesses to represent them. And there's other lobbyists that represent nonprofits and churches and labor unions. And so anyway, there's a realm. I mean, any subject you could think of, there's probably a lobbyist that represents that group. But so John hires me on a 12-month basis, but then he pays me every month to represent him. And so it just depends on the number of clients. But I mean, some lobbyists, it just depends how hard you want to work. And if you're willing to put in the time, because this is not an easy job. I mean, you are up here very long hours and you're running around, you're meeting with people and tracking bills. And so this is, so those that choose the path that want to work hard and do a good job, you're going to make more money. And that's probably relevant at any choice or line of work that you choose to go into. So if that's the route you can take, you can make a very good living at that. There's others that want to have just 1 or 2 clients, which is great, and you can make a reasonable living at it. So I think it's a wide range. But I would say if you're interested, I would definitely suggest, if you're interested in policy, to look at lobbying.
So here's a fun fact. If you go to the Public Disclosure Commission website, which is www.pdc.wa.gov, you can actually look and see how much all the lobbyists, because lobbyists are required to disclose how much they make in their clients, how much they spend on entertainment expenses, how much they spend on personal expenses, how much they contribute to political campaigns. All of that has to be disclosed. And so you can look and you can learn a lot about us if you go to that website.
So my name's Junior, and I'm wondering, how many years do you have to go? How many years of school do you have to go through to become a lobbyist?
Good question. Yeah.
So I have my 4-year degree, my undergraduate degree, from Central in political science. So and I haven't gone on to grad school or law school. Definitely want to. And as soon as I get my 5 kids out the door and into their college, hopefully, that is a personal goal I have. I think John and I were both on the cusp before. My recommendation to anybody coming into the industry right now is that, pretty tough to get into lobbying without anything lower than a master's degree. There's a lot of attorneys up here. I am not convinced that you need to have your law degree to work up here. But having something just beyond your undergraduate degree is what I would recommend.
I would agree with that. And it is the people who have law degrees, I agree with Christine. I don't think a law degree is necessary to be a lobbyist. But the people who do have law degrees they typically represent clients in more than just lobbying and provide legal services to them as well. So, and there is some overlap, of course, in helping to advocate for the laws, and then working in the court system or with the administration to interpret laws and make sure you're compliant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so my name's Aiden, and my question is, how do you take it when a bill you really care about doesn't pass?
How do we take it when a bill we really care about doesn't pass? Was that the question, Aiden?
Yes.
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, most bills take more than 1 year to pass. And so the question, the question isn't necessarily, did it pass? I mean, obviously, if you're advocating for something, that's your goal, right? But the question is, how far did you get with that bill in terms of educating people? How much headway did you make in garnering support? Understanding that it's really pretty hard to pass a bill, and it's lots of easy ways to kill a bill. So if it doesn't pass 1 year and you feel like you're making headway, then it's okay. If it doesn't pass and you feel like that the bill has been kind of put down and not open for further consideration, then it's disappointing. Then you got to regroup and come up with it.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Temple, and my question is, what is the hardest and easiest bill that you've ever worked on?
Well, let's see.
I would say, we can give you an example right now. I was going to bring up the carbon tax bill. So you might have seen in the news lately that the governor, Inslee, is really interested in carbon tax legislation and basically that would be a tax on any carbon produced. And so since we represent a utility, that tax would come directly onto our customers, to Avista customers. So I think, you know, I would put this in, this is a tough bill because this is a governor's request legislation. So that heightens, there's a lot of bills. There's about 2,000 bills that get introduced each session. And so, but you need to bucket those into different buckets on who's introducing them. So when the governor introduces a bill, that puts that up to the top of your list on that you need to be working on. And so this is not only this is a complicated issue because it includes a new tax, a new program that Avista would need to come into compliance with and work through. But it's also, it's a new tax. And so it's a new tax on our customers, and we take that very seriously. But we also want to work with the governor, and we understand that, you know, this protecting the environment's important. And so we're trying to make sure we're doing the right thing as a company, but it's complicated. And so legislators will come to John and I right away and say, are you for this or are you against this? Black and white. And, you know, a lot of times there's a lot of movement in between on what exactly our position is. And so that's my example for a kind of a challenging, complicated bill.
Yeah, that's a good one that we're working on right now that you might want to track a little bit. It's a pretty high profile bill that'll be kind of a defining issue this session. The interesting thing about the carbon tax bill is it brings a lot of stakeholders to the table, affects a lot of people, which to Christine's point makes it a challenging bill because a lot of people have different interests. The other consideration is that if a bill doesn't pass this year, there are groups that are likely going to put a ballot initiative on for voters to vote on in November. And I think everyone agrees that it would be better for the legislature to do something than to have it done at the ballot because it just gets worked through a little bit better. So that's adding to the challenging dynamic of that carbon tax discussion.
What bill number that is?
Bill I would say that we work on is something that has been in law, that's a good idea, it's getting ready to expire, and people agree, well, let's keep doing this. And we had an example of that last year. You've probably seen maybe the commercials where if you dig in your yard or if you're gonna do a construction projects and you dig, you're supposed to call 811 before you dig. Call before you dig. I don't know if you've seen those commercials or not. That law has been in place for a few years. It was going to expire, and everyone agreed it was a good law. It was a good idea to keep people safe and to keep the utility infrastructure from getting damaged. And so last year we passed a bill that said, let's keep this law going forward. So we passed the bill to make sure that program didn't.
What was that bill number?
On the call before you dig, where we extended the bill. You know what?
The bill.
Pardon me?
The carbon bill?
Oh, 6203.
And is it a House bill?
Is it a House bill?
No, that's a Senate bill. So House bills.
Hold on, we're gonna give that to him for homework.
Okay, all right.
That's a homework assignment.
Okay.
How do you guys know if it's a Senate bill or a House bill? That would be one thing that you can look up.
That's a good idea.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have one more. Do you have any more? But we can save it till next time. Does he want to go? Sorry, Chase. Let me get the last of those. I have them right here. Hi there. So we had the kids get onto the Washington Bill Research website and had them, we kind of picked out some topics we thought they'd be interested in, and then we had them look up bills by topic to be able to search that way. And so I'll talk about the bills that we've been looking at in my class, and then I'll let Mrs. Matthews talk about her class. And we've decided that our two classes are going to work on the same bill.
Okay.
And so we'll all be, working on it. So House Bill 2311, reducing barriers to student participation in extracurricular activities. So we kind of looked at that, and we think that means that like the $75 to be on the golf team, the $45 for the ASB card, $75 for marching band. These are all fees that I pay at South Kitsap High School for my kids. So those are roadblocks that keep kids from doing sports and activities, which are safety nets for kids after school. So they have positive things to do. So that is one that my class is interested in.
A couple that my class was looking at was House Bill 2386, and that's providing room and board for certain college-bound scholarship students. So not only would their tuition be paid, but they would also have room and board set up for them.
Okay.
And in our area, we have House Bill 2312, and that is providing urban levels of internet speed and access to rural areas, because the internet out here is very slow for a lot of our students. It's hard for them to research and get their homework done.
Another one is Senate Bill 6065, adopting policy and procedures on student interviews and interrogations. We looked at that bill, and that says that if a kid is under 12, the school has to contact the parents before they interview them about an issue at school. And then if they're 12 until they're, I don't know if it's 18, or seniors sometimes are over 18. You know, sometimes they've already turned 18 and are adults. But if they're 12 until high school, it looks like they have to make a reasonable attempt to contact the parent that they're going to interview or interrogate a student.
Great.
But if you guys have a bill that you think would be interesting for us to study, we would be willing to look into that too.
Yeah, we're open to any suggestions. Just with the short session, we know we got to get these kids locked in, pick a bill, vote, and we're going to do a majority vote, because otherwise we'll spend the whole time debating like you guys do in Olympia about what bill we're going to pick. So we'll end up voting.
I think these are relevant to the kids and very topical and interesting.
Okay. Another one was 6003, concerning breakfast after the bell programs in certain public schools. So if a bus gets here late, or a kid gets to school late,
they would have breakfast after.
They would be able to have that opportunity to have breakfast.
I would say the highest profile bills that you selected would be the breakfast after the bell or your internet speed in rural areas. I would say those are the two that I would say have the most.
You'll see a pretty robust discussion around those for sure. I think you can.
Okay. Okay. And then in the past, we've tried to pick a bill that had sponsors who were both a Republican and maybe a Democrat. And so they had bipartisan support. And we're, you know, it's nice. And, you know, you can pick a bill that you're against too and try and kill it. But we kind of want to pick a bill that you see that you might have legs and would teach the kids the process of what a bill goes through to be a law.
I think
We'd like to.
I think that's
because
that will die.
Right. We picked like dog breeds before not being discriminated against. And it didn't even get out of its first meeting or session, and it died. And so then our Capital Classroom Connections, we didn't have a lot to talk about because our bill died so early. So.
Well, I think the breakfast after the bell, which we would, I mean, we'll have to do a little research on our end too, but I think the House already passed their version off of the floor. So I'm sure there's two bills. I'm not sure if they're identical, but I mean, it would seem to me for us to think through maybe just tracking both of those bills. I mean, it's on the same topic and usually there's a companion. But I think the House already passed their version because, I mean, and that's another area maybe of homework, but when bills are introduced, we operate in a biennial setting. So that means every 2 years. So when a bill is introduced the first year of the biennium and it doesn't pass, then it carries over to the second year. And so now we're in the second year of the biennium. So all the bills that were alive last session, they don't need to be reintroduced. They just simply roll over to the second half of the biennium. So, and I bring that up because breakfast after the bell, the House version, they didn't even have a public hearing. They just brought it straight to the floor and they voted on it to move it across to the Senate. And I say that means that is a priority bill for them. They're moving this quickly. So then
it sounds.
The breakfast after the bell it's already had a hearing and it's scheduled to be voted out of committee on Monday. So it's moving. That one looks like one that you're gonna be able to watch move through the process at least for a good share of the way.
So you've mentioned the process a couple times. I think a good homework assignment would be for us to have our kids research the steps a bill has to go through, because you're mentioning a committee or a hearing meeting, and that I don't even think they're knowledgeable that maybe that has to happen in the House and the Senate. So maybe we could have them research that a little bit. So then when you're using language and telling us bill, how the bill is progressing, they understand the steps. Does that sound like?
That's great.
That'd be
Okay.
a great idea.
And I also wanted to let you know that we are going on a field trip to the Capitol on Monday, February 26th.
Oh, cool. Great.
And we'll be there from about 9:30 until noon. And we are going through enterprise services. And in the past, they've done a great job of getting a hold of our lobbyists and then setting a time for us to meet in the state reception room. So it's really fun too for the kids to be able to meet you guys in person.
Right.
Because yeah, you'll feel like rock stars because they're so excited to meet you, because they can, you know, they've seen you on camera. And then when we go to the Capitol building, we've even been walking through the halls and they're pointing and they see their lobbyist, you know what I mean? And they're like, is that her? Is that him? And so it's real fun. So
I look forward to that. That's going to be great.
Okay.
So, and included in that homework, I think it'd be what I mentioned, they should research how they know if it's a Senate bill or a House bill. I think that would be important to know.
You should be able to tell just by the number.
Okay. Oh, by the number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Okay.
Okay. So we'll try through email, email back and forth, and then our goal is to get locked in on a bill before we meet again.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I know. Thank you. This is the highlight of our year, is
Yes.
getting the kids out of the textbook and being able to do this. Just the absolute highlight of our year for
Yes.
teaching. So,
Look forward to this. This will be a lot of fun.
and I don't know if you noticed, but the kids were excited and they really have done some research and thought their questions through. And I think they're really valuing Capital Classroom in your time.
I think it's a great program. This is neat.
Right. We have super excited.
Yes.
So, okay.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet everybody.
You guys want to wave goodbye?
Thank you.
Bye.